Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least one person is reported hurt as Nigerian police clash with crowds angry about the way that hundreds of homes have been demolished in the Makoko floating village. It's the chaotic, unauthorized and iconic home of up to 200,000 people. Also, Rwanda sues Britain for the £100 million cash that it says is still due as part of a scrapped agreement with the former British government for the African nation to take in people deported from the UK. And US YouTuber IShowSpeed is the latest member of the diaspora to be granted Ghanaian citizenship. The announcement comes as the 21-year-old American wraps up his wildly popular tour of the continent. But first, at least one protester was hurt on Wednesday as police in Lagos tried to break up crowds that had marched on government buildings over their anger that hundreds of homes were being torn down. Now, those demolitions in the Mokoko floating village have left many residents with nowhere to go. Officials say that the informal settlement is unsafe. But in a city with serious housing shortages, it's home to over 200,000 people and has existed for over a century.
Scenes of chaos in Lagos as police fired tear gas to disperse protesters demanding compensation after mass evictions carried out by the Lagos state government. Most displaced residents accuse authorities of demolishing their homes without adequate notice, compensation or plans to resettle affected families.
My house was demolished in Otumara community. My church was demolished because my husband was the pastor of the church, CNS Church of Zion, Otumara. It was all demolished with all our belongings. We do not have anything. Most of my brothers, some of them are sleeping under the bridge in Otumara.
The unrest comes amid fresh demolitions in Makoko, once one of Africa's largest floating settlements, where fishing and informal trade sustain daily life.
I move goods from Lagos to Cotonou by boat. And since they have demolished the whole place, every of my customers have scattered away, and the business is not going again. I'm just stranded.
Families fled with children and elderly, while schools and community buildings were also destroyed. Lagos state authorities say the demolitions are necessary to enforce urban planning laws, reduce environmental risks, and prevent flooding in high-risk areas, insisting the structures were illegal and unsafe. But with no formal resettlement plan announced, many displaced residents remain stranded, uncertain where they will sleep next.
Well, more on Rwanda's standoff with the UK now over that scrapped migrant deal. Kigali is suing for the outstanding cash due as part of an agreement with the former British government for the African nation to take in people deported from the UK. Now, that was dropped when Prime Minister Keir Starmer took over in 2024. But Rwanda says it is still owed £100 million. Juliette Montier with more.
This is a saga that shows no sign of ending between Rwanda and the United Kingdom ever since their migration partnership was cancelled. The latest chapter, Kigali is taking London to the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration. At the centre of the dispute are two payments of £50 million each. To recap, the plan, which involved deporting illegal migrants to Rwanda, was scrapped in 2024 by the Labour government shortly after it came to power. The agreement did include a termination clause, but according to the Rwandan government, which has already received £240 million, the deal was ended unilaterally without any renegotiation. And for Kigali, that means the payments are still due. Relations between the two countries worsened sharply last year when the UK suspended much of its aid, citing Rwanda's role in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. At the same time, Kigali is increasingly trying to present itself as a turnkey solution for Western countries looking to outsource their migration policies. We saw that again this summer with the signing of a migration deal with the US administration. But behind its image of a stable and modern country, Paul Kagame's Rwanda continues to face regular criticism over its human rights record.
That breakdown from our Juliet Monti there. Now, ratings agency Fitch has downgraded Afreximbank to junk. Now, that means its analysts' trust in the African lender's ability to meet its debts is deemed to be less than robust. Afreximbank's relationship with Fitch, though, was already frayed. And last week it said that it was cutting ties because it didn't believe that the agency's approach was a good fit for the bank's structure and mission to promote and expand African trade. Now, one of Fitch's concerns was over Afreximbank's exposure to losses on its loans to debt-defaulted member nations, including Ghana and Zambia. And US YouTuber IShowSpeed is the latest member of the diaspora to be granted Ghanaian citizenship. Now, that announcement that the 21-year-old American would become a national was made on Wednesday as he wrapped up a wildly popular month-long tour of the continent. Our Ghanaian correspondent, Justice Baidu, has more.
IShowSpeed's stop in Ghana seemed to be the major talking point of the 20 countries that he visited whilst in Africa. His Ghana stream alone saw more than 500,000 views in 24 hours of posting. The visit and stream from Ghana has put the country in the limelight. A massage parlor that he visited and streamed from, for example, has seen so many clients since then. It has had to close, taking in new clients until the end of March. Ghana is the only country that has offered to give Mr. Speed a passport and citizenship. This has also added on to the buzz. But this is in line with what Ghana has been doing since 2019 when the country launched the Year of Return program, where it is aggressively encouraging members of the African diaspora to return to Africa, the motherland, and take up Ghanaian citizenship. The country has since then gone on to give thousands of people coming from the Americas and the Caribbean citizenship and its passport. This tour is also receiving a lot of buzz, in part because of the caliber of people and the demographics that follow IShowSpeed's stream. Many of these people are members of the Gen Z and Generation Alpha and persons who have not visited Africa at all before. And this visit and the places that he's been and the sort of things that he's shown seem to have challenged several stereotypes about the continent Africa. There's a sense that many people have now seen other sides of this continent which they before now did not know.
Justice Baidu there for us. Now, members of South Africa's film industry held a protest in Cape Town on Wednesday against funding cuts to their sector. Hundreds of people gathered outside of Parliament, angry at what they say is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition's mismanagement of a funding mechanism that has stalled the production process. More protests are planned for later this week.
The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has maladministered the film and television rebate. That has led to a loss of jobs, that has led to business going to other countries, and we are losing out on work as South Africans.
We want the government to be aware and be held accountable so that the film and industry can once again grow to what it's always been and what it should be.
Well, Sudan's three-year war continues to rage. However, the country's capital, Khartoum, now has a shot at an uneasy calm ever since the army retook the city from RSF paramilitary forces last year. Rebuilding has slowly begun, as Arlene Botin tells us.
Sifting through the rubble, these workers are clearing what remains of entire neighborhoods. After 3 years of civil war, Khartoum is beginning the long process of reconstruction. Cleanup operations are underway as authorities try to bring the city back to life. Buildings riddled with bullets, destroyed infrastructure. The task ahead is enormous, and the local economy has been left in ruins.
When the war broke out, our warehouses were full, and the shops were well stocked. Everything was looted. We lost everything.
Restoring hospitals is one of the government's top priorities. According to the Sudan Doctors Network, around 1/3 of Khartoum's public and private hospitals closed during the war have already resumed operations.
The most serious damage was to the electrical system. All the transformers and cables inside the hospital were destroyed. Recently, we received 2 new transformers, which is a crucial step forward.
On January 11th, the Sudanese government announced its return to the capital, ending 3 years of exile in Port Sudan. The United Nations estimates that rebuilding Khartoum will cost around $350 million.
Well, Ivory Coast says that it will start buying back thousands of tons of unsold cocoa that have been sitting in warehouses and around the country's ports ever since November. Now, the holdup has also seen the income of farmers stagnate in the world's largest producer of cacao. But many worry that this last-minute intervention may be too little, too late. Justice Baidu again.
It's an unbearable wait. For 2 months, not a single kilo of cocoa produced by farmers of this cooperative here in Agbonville has been sold.
The cocoa is still stored there.
But we have problems. My child's in hospital, so we really need to be paid. The children haven't been to school either.
You're right, calm down. The problems will be resolved soon.
This is a problem affecting the whole of the Ivory Coast. It's the world's top cocoa producer, and 1/4 of the population relies on the industry for their livelihood. The government has promised to buy back the cocoa from cooperatives. The cost of this delay, however, is already being felt.
There's a risk of mold, so we have to take the cocoa out each time, dry it, and then put it back in the bags to be pelletized again. That costs even more money. There's also the risk of theft. We were victims of theft in November. We lost a lot of cocoa.
100 tons of cocoa are being stored in this particular warehouse awaiting sale. This is only 1/3 of what is produced here in this area by farmers. Some have sold off their stock at bargain prices outside of legal channels, while others watch their produce rot away.
All of this is just wasted cocoa pods that we're going to throw away. Because of a lack of money, we couldn't pay for the labor nor for the cleaning products.
Behind this crisis is a problem with money. While the price per kilo was set at a record amount of 2,800 CFA, the price of cocoa fell on the international market, leaving the government cash-strapped and unable to pay.
The Coffee and Cocoa Council, instead of selling cocoa to multinationals with resources, chose to sell all the volume to domestic producers for their own economic benefit. But those to whom they sold this cocoa don't have the financial means to buy it.
Farmer unions say 700,000 tons of the beans are currently unsold, a figure disputed by the country's Minister of Agriculture.
That's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.